All right. So for our final segment tonight, well, actually this afternoon because that's when it's going to broadcast. It's tonight for us. We're going to talk about Vatican II, the Electric Boogaloo. No. Basically, this is a story that is kind of the handbook of modern Catholicism. And there's a lot of straw men in there about atheism. But this particular article comes from Stephen Bullivant. Wow. Okay. Uh, and it came out on October 13th of this year. And again, I'm not going to sing a parody of Do You Want to Build a Straw Man? Mostly because it would sound terrible and we would probably get in trouble if we did that. But looking through this and looking through what the Vatican II was had written, it seems like that is the modern apologetics that we are seeing uh, on every show. And you jump down to the comments and um, well, we'll get to that in a moment. But the problem is that they made a lot of assumptions about atheism and in conjunction with communism, because when it came out in the 60s, what did we have? We had the big red scare. Everything was communism and atheism was misunderstood. So they've got to be paired up. And I do know some atheists who would call themselves communism, but they still do try to find better jobs to, support themselves and their families. So these kind of scare tactics, it doesn't really hold water. But let's go with Helen. What do you think?
I just see this as like Catholics, leaders in the Catholic Church shaking in their funny hats because we're moving into a more secular age. And as someone that grew up Catholic, one thing, science is not shamed in the Catholic Church. You can learn science. They have their own science division at the church. So if you include that, plus with ready access to information, people moving beyond these old ways of thinking, and as that moves forward, people are like, you know what? I don't want to be part of this group anymore. Especially like for me, my nail in the coffin moment was the sexual abuse scandal. I'm sorry, I don't want to be a part of a crowd that abuses kids. So as they're moving forward, people are leaving the church because they hear about the abuse scandals and they become more science educated. They become more skeptical. They might not become atheists. They might be a spiritual person, whatever that means, but they don't want to be a part of a religion. And the straw man arguments, as you pointed out, Jason, that was in this article, it's just them basically crying wolf, and being afraid because not new people are joining the flock. Though I think it's a false fear because there's still billions of Catholics in the world that are still giving them donations and going to service and all that type of stuff. So, I understand, like, I would be worried too if I was losing my money train. But at the same time, the reason why they're afraid of atheists and the rise of it and this idea of rise of secularism and tying it to the Red Scare, tying it to those old fears, because at that time when people were afraid of the Red Scare and communism and all that type of stuff, they turned to the church and they want people to do it again. But we're not playing. We're not playing the same game anymore. We're not. This is not the same pony show. And I think that's what happens with progress. And you can go online now and look up criticisms and research and all these different things about the church. And people don't want to join. The only way, really, they don't really get new people, you're born into it because your family follows it. And it's hard to get new members when we're moving to a more secular society. Richard, what do you kind of think about this?
Oh, I think it's part of me wants to laugh at it. It's the Catholic Church has this habit of reinventing itself every couple of 100 years because it has to, and coming up with the new Catholic, the Catholic Reformation after they had their intellectual and physical asses kicked in the 16th, 17th century, and various other things that kept happening. I like reading the article. There's this line where they're saying that during this, how should we deal with these creeping secularism and these atheists? Describing atheists, one Polish bishop describing atheists as enemy of reason, science, the human person, and revelation. Well, 1 out of 4 is not bad. It's just. It's hilarious. I mean, the idea that when you read something like this article, if anyone goes down the bottom wants to read it, the idea that creeping secularization is some kind of bad thing that needs to be resisted is almost completely alien to me. It's completely backwards. It just all feels backwards. It's like, no. It's a good thing. Let's keep on creeping. In fact, let's go from a creep to a bit of a stride, shall we? Let's secularize in a bit of a stride. That'd be nice. And whether they like it or not, it's happening. People are leaving all churches, pretty much, except maybe Islam. All religions seem to be losing adherents. People within those religions seem to be increasingly secular versions of the people within them, so they'll maybe be nominally Christian, or in some places nominally Islam or nominally Jewish, but actually they act as if they're a secular person who doesn't believe. And it's happening, and they can throw all the straw man they want at us, and they can be worried about it all they want. Hard luck. Hard luck,
To be clear, people are also leaving Islam now, not at the numbers that we're seeing in, the Catholic Church and the Christian, churches and a lot of the other religions. But there are people who are leaving. There are people who are leaving all different faiths.
Yeah.
So whether it's an Eastern, whether it's a Western, doesn't matter. But August, what have you got?
Well, I first want to point out that I had to keep reading and rereading the same sentence in this article because it was just a bunch of word vomit to me. But eventually I got through it. It was just heavy, man. I was like, this article could not be less entertaining if it tried. It was boring as hell. But, despite the lack of creative writing here, I think that the fact that they said that the rise of atheism is among the most serious problems of this age.
Yeah.
I'm very
okay
concerned.
with that.
So concerned.
I'm okay with that. I'm good. I'm personally, I'm good.
Right. I read this and I was like, global warming, rise of homelessness, clean water insecurity, human trafficking, slavery still existing in the world. Nah, a lack of belief in God due to you and your followers of your faith not having good enough evidence to convince anyone with half an ounce of skepticism of your bullshit claims is the problem. That's the problem here, right? Give me a break. Come on, man.
Look,
it's your fault. It's your fault that this is rising, and you're just pointing at yourselves like that Spider-Man meme. It's you. You're the problem. You are the drama. That's what's going on here.
Sky Daddy's still got to get paid, so that's why it's the biggest problem.
Right.
Yeah.
Rich, what else you got?
Well, I'm just thinking that, the thing about it being boring to read reminds me of David Hume, who describes theology as, I can't remember the exact quote, but it was something along the lines of a bunch of sharp barbs erected to hide their weaknesses. They write this very boring word salady nonsense because all they're saying is, oh no, atheists. And that's kind of all it says, despite the fact there being 500 million words of it. I don't want to be too hard on my theological colleagues, but do something else. It's not really academia. My mum's sort of a Catholic, and I think she's one of those examples of, she says she's a Catholic, but she isn't. She kind of has some beads. and she'll go to church once a year, and she likes wine, and that's kind of all there is to it. I've this idea that atheism is the worst possible thing we can face right now would be hilarious, would it not be depressing? But as I say, from my point of view, I don't care because they're losing. They're losing this fight, and they can whinge and moan about it all they want. And what we'll do, the rest of us, and this includes the slightly more sensible religious people out there, is we'll worry about the actual, problems, and we'll try to solve those while they sit in a box going, "Oh, atheism bad." Ugh.
Well, and that just shows the apologetics that we have been seeing over the past couple of decades. Meanwhile, all the arguments that atheists are able to make have been able to evolve, have been able to poke holes, and yet as the arguments from us tend to evolve, they just keep on going back. No, because I have to be right, because look, we can trace back to this book, and that's just not how things work. But Helen, you had something you wanted to say.
Well, I just find this whole idea of them being like terrified of atheism, like that, like, because that article is a little bit of a word salad, because it's just there's a lot of words, but you're not really saying anything. You're just like, as you were saying, like, atheism bad. Okay, fine. But like, and they've tried to change their image. The new pope was supposed to be this cool progressive pope, and he was okay with gay people. Good for you. Good for you. And it just like, yeah. Again, but you still won't let gay people get married in the church? Oh, okay. You still think it's a sin? Oh, okay. Well, then you're not as progressive as you're claiming to be. And it's just about saving face. It's just about trying to be more palatable to the younger generation, or even just because guess what? Old people are gay too. We're just everywhere. It's just what it is. And this constant apologetics, the constant trying to save face, it just gets, from my perspective, very exhausting. And I grew up in the church, and I saw this happening over and over again. And as you were saying, Jason, we are trying to improve our arguments. We're talking about like how to become a better human, like be a humanist. How do we take care of each other? August pointed out, we have bigger fish to fry than worrying about our atheists getting more power. I guess. Do we have power? Do we have the power of the
We
church?
do, as long as we well, no, we don't have the power of the church, but we have power, whether they want to admit it or not. We do have power, and we keep gaining every year. But
Yeah.
August, what do you think?
Yeah, just a few more things here. I thought one very funny part of the article was that he said, read in context, the reader should have no doubt to what the fathers are referring. And just that sentence made me chuckle, because I was like, yeah, well, so many people read the Bible and they come to widely and vastly different conclusions about what it says. So just blatantly stating, well, everyone should know what this means. No, that's not how that works in any section of life, but also especially in religion. Are you kidding me? That's where the most, you have to read the context, and it's up to interpretation. That's where all that comes from. And there are about as many religions, if you look at the exact beliefs of each person, there are about as many religions as there are people that are theists, because everyone has slightly different variations of how they interpreted text. So I just thought it was really funny that he would say that. I also do want to point out that as I was scrolling through the article, when I would get too bored, to be completely honest, when I would I would go to the very end of it, and it again made me chuckle that part of they have a laundry list of rules for commenting on their page, which is hilarious. But then I believe it was the second one, was no attacking the church or her doctrines.
Ooh.
Is your faith that is your faith that shallow? Is it that shaky that it can be destroyed by some trolls on the internet saying, your church is bad. Like, what? Are you kidding me? I thought that was hilarious. I couldn't believe that this was not some sort of satire. It honestly, I wanted to look for, is this the Onion somewhere? I also hate this trope that they always talk about, which is, I saw them put atheists, agnostics, and a whole other, non-believers, etc. And I'm like, those aren't mutually exclusive. Most of us, dare I say most of us, or at least most of the people I've come across, are called agnostic atheists. Like, that's what I would call myself. I'm an agnostic atheist. I'm pretty sure there's not a God. I've not been convinced there's a God, but I can't say that one just doesn't exist. I'm not going to take a hard position on it, but I hate when they do that BS of, they're the agnostics, they just don't know. No, that's not really how that works. It's belief versus knowledge. So you should probably figure that out. But Dr. Rich, I think you had something.
Yeah, if there's that, following on from that, the difference between agnostic and atheist, this guy should know that. He's not just some commentator who's phoning up, somebody who believes who's phoning up the atheist experience to shout at people. He is a PhD holder who works in the university and teaches theology. He absolutely knows what agnosticism is and what atheism is, and what Promethean humanism is, which I didn't know. It's quite interesting, Promethean humanism. Look it up. We should all have fire. Terrible bit of writing and thinking from a supposed person of doctorates, person of letters. Awful.
So I just want to mention one last thing about this particular article, and it's that it actually had a comment section as well. And I jumped down there, and there isn't a lot of comments. There's only like 20-something comments there, but I did want to highlight a couple of them. The first comment that I saw on there is, we hear it all the time. What evidence do atheists provide to support their belief that only the physical universe exists? And I laugh at this, and the first thing I put on there is like, I guess we could look at the trees, right? The trees are
Where's
there.
the burden of proof?
The trees are physically there. But we can only assume that what we see, what we touch, what we can test is the physical, but we don't have a test for the non-physical beyond what is created in our minds. Like, I believe that New York exists because I can go there. I have been there. I can go there again if I really wanted to, but Iron Man is not going to give me a scholarship anytime soon. And the other comment I wanted to,
Jason.
Right.
You just gotta believe in your heart.
I just don't have that kind of faith. I just don't.
Do the sign of the arc reactor.
And the second one I wanted to point out was, has the church gotten closer to Judas or to Jesus? And I'm just like, bro, really? That's all I got for that.